This episode of True Consequences is brought to you by Wagner Spray Tech. Ask anyone who knows me and they will tell you that I am not handy at all. I will hire out anything that requires these skills because I know I will just mess it up. So I just had a wall installed in my backyard and it needed to be painted. I was dreading standing outside all day in the New Mexico summer heat. It sounded like a nightmare to me. Then I discovered the Flexio 3000 paint sprayer from Wagner. This thing is awesome. No more fumbling with messy rollers and brushes, and it does it all. It's designed for painting or staining walls, furniture, cabinets, and more. The best part is, it's 10 times faster than a brush. It can spray paints and stains right from the can. It gives you more control and less mess, and it's great for indoor and outdoor projects. My favorite part about all of this is that it only takes 5 minutes to clean it up. Honestly, you have to try this thing. It's made a believer out of me, and I actually had fun painting. Go to wagnerspraytech.com, get yourself a Flexio paint sprayer. I'm telling you, it's going to change your life. Use the link in the show notes to get your sprayer today.
The Oracle Network. Look deeper.
This is True Consequences, a true crime and mystery podcast with stories based in New Mexico in the American desert Southwest.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Malice crossover with True Consequences. I want to welcome Eric to, it's on my feed, but we're equal contributors to this. So it will be available on all of his channels as well as all of mine. So everybody, thank you so much for coming. I am so glad that you're joining us for this because this is such a critical moment in such a monumental and controversial case. So first of all, I guess for Malice listeners, Eric, would you go ahead and introduce yourself and your show?
Sure, I'm Eric Carter-Landin. I'm the host of True Consequences and the co-ghost of Dos Pequeños. I have two shows. True Consequences is all about true crime in New Mexico, and Dos Pequeños is all about the paranormal in New Mexico. So it's fun stuff.
It's so good. It's so good. I described it earlier today to Sarah, actually, who's with us this evening, as I think phenomenal is the word that I used. So
you're too kind.
Oh, well, I am not. I'm just honest, you know. So I guess for Eric's listeners who are not familiar with me, which is weird because I've been on his show. Come on, guys, get with it.
Couple times.
Several times, exactly.
Yeah.
But if you don't know me, I'm Ariel Cooksey. I'm the host of Malice and a sister podcast, Podcasts the Podcast, where I bring on podcasters to talk about their lives and their experiences and themselves outside of the context of their show. I like to get to know people and I like to promote other podcasts. So it's a really great time. Let's see who just popped in here. Oh, I feel like I forgot to put in my contacts. This is going to be an interesting adventure. Welcome, regardless. So, okay, let's see here. Eric, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah. So we've been talking about this case for a while now, you and I, and we covered it on my show in two parts, one podcast episode only, and then one on GetVokl.
Right.
And we both were very frustrated with Ghislaine Maxwell and the story of what she did and how she participated in all of this. Mm-hmm. And we roasted her quite a bit on that second part. Not enough. We need to roast her some more.
It started on the first, and that's where I want to just make my first little note. I couldn't bring myself to say her name more than once, and so it kind of in that very first episode, I just sort of said, so Ghislaine Maxwell, aka this bitch. And from that point forward, that's who she is, and we're making it a hashtag. So if you'd like to, mention this, post it up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever, let's make it trend. Hashtag this bitch.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely not worth naming. And also her name's kind of weird and kind of hard to say.
Ghislaine is what I've taken to calling her.
So do you want to hear some crazy coincidence that happened? in New Mexico in relation to this.
Of course, I'm here for it.
So, so she was arrested yesterday, right? On Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
No, or was it Wednesday?
It was Thursday because it was the same day as
Thursday.
my anniversary. I was like, best present ever.
So on Wednesday, somebody put up a Epstein statue in downtown Albuquerque.
I'm sorry, what?
Or Wednesday morning, there was a random Epstein statue in downtown Albuquerque that just showed up out of nowhere.
I what the fuck?
So that's a really weird coincidence.
Ugh.
I'd like to believe that maybe somebody knew something, but probably not. It's probably just, I feel like it might have been a way of sending a message, because there are some New Mexican politicians and New Mexican business people that are associated with him. And so I feel like that was kind of a way to call out his connection to the state.
You know what? If it is, I'm kind of here for it. You know what I mean? Like that's and also foreshadowing. So it could be, maybe it's paranormal. I don't know.
Maybe
somebody was like, "I'll get ready, bitches."
It's either a psychic or a ghost, right?
Yeah, exactly. A psychic or a ghost or somebody in the know. Could be all kinds of conspiracies in this case, aren't there?
Absolutely.
So, so let's recap the Epstein case. I'm pretty sure anybody here knows, like, who fits the bill for that shit? Oh, for the statue? Yeah, that's weird.
I think it was an artist. I think it was an artist that did it, or I don't think anybody paid. Like, I don't think anybody commissioned it. 2020 bingo. You're right. That's so good. That's so
2020 bingo, right? Yeah.
Just when you thought it couldn't get any more weird, it just keeps getting weirder.
What if Epstein is a ghost now? Hey, you know what? You should cover that on Ghost Opinions.
Okay, I'll do it.
Excellent. Okay, so
recap.
All right. So we found out that Jeffrey Epstein, who was a self-made billionaire, was, basically running one of the largest trafficking rings for young girls on the planet, basically, and was involved with many, many, many higher up officials and people in power and people with prestige and wealth, and ultimately was keeping a lot of secrets for them. And so he was keeping a lot of secrets for them, namely that they were child molesters. So, when this broke, of course, he had been brushing it under the rug and paying people to hush money for years and years and years. And when it finally broke publicly, and he was arrested, he had this insane situation with the jail that he was being kept in that he was allowed to go out of the jail during the day to his home to work, which shouldn't have happened. And there were guards stationed at like a door, and his place is like an entire city block in New York City. So to me, I felt like that was just yet another piece of that white male uber wealthy privilege. And he basically, though, mysteriously died in his cell. There's still conspiracy as to whether it was an outside execution or whether it was actually dying by suicide. So, and if I use the word committed, I would, please, I'm so sorry. That's not the language that I want to use. But anyway, go for it, Eric.
Well, I was just going to say, I think the only people calling it a suicide are the media and maybe some of the people that were in the government. I think that the public in general, the consensus is that he did not kill himself, that he was the victim of foul play. Victim, I don't want to use that word, but that's just the only word I can come up with at this point.
I think we can agree, that I find the loss of human life to be a terrible thing. Obviously, if we're in the true crime community, if you're not here because you're a psychopath and interested in hearing gory details, we're here because we do care about victims, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a perfect victim to still be a victim, right? That said, I'm not fucking crying about it. So,
yeah, but I don't think that he did that himself, honestly. And we talked about that on part 2 of what we covered. The broken hyo, it doesn't make a lot of sense with him hanging himself. It doesn't work physiologically.
No, I agree. Hi, Patty. Welcome. Morgan from Human Monster Detail. Oh, wait. Panicking at. Yeah, okay. So, they brought up Prince Andrew, right? And we'll get to him. But yes, thank you for bringing that up. We'll put a pin in it. But Mark said that he is probably sweating right now. Was it Mark that said that? I have to go up in the chat a little bit. Yes. Yeah, I definitely agree. And then Sarah said, you predict Maxwell's going to have complicated COVID and die by strangulation suicide. Mm-hmm. Hashtag Maxwell died by suicide.
Maxwell didn't kill herself?
There we go. That one's better. You're sharp, Eric.
So the whole thing, like, honestly, we talked about this last time we got together, how she was hiding.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, Ariel, like, I feel that she was not hiding from the police or the FBI. Like, I feel like she was hiding from the people that she has dirt on. That's just my opinion. It's speculation.
Sure.
But the FBI knew where she was the entire time.
That's insane. I mean, it just worries me, when there are such deep pockets at play here. And, I think you're absolutely right. To me, it's like, if law enforcement knew where she was, was it a matter of them feeling like they had to wait until they had everything in place before they apprehended her? In order to secure her safety, because, Mark was just saying in the feed that she's going to probably make a play for immunity, right, by giving people up. Yeah, unfortunately, she's in a lose-lose situation at this point, because she's got 2 ways of going about this. She either gives up these wealthy, powerful people who could potentially end her, right, like destroy her life, even if she did get immunity, or she's in a position where they're going to take care of it before she can. So
there's going to be problems with this whole case.
Mm-hmm,
I'm telling you right now, there's going to be massive problems, which we can get into later. But, like, the appeals process for the sweetheart deal that Epstein got in Florida, the appeals court upheld the deal. And in the deal, he said that any and all co-conspirators would not be prosecuted.
Right.
And so I think we can expect to see that be brought up in this trial by her defense team.
Right. And, it makes me wonder, too, Epstein's dead. So any deals that were made with him, do those still apply? Or is this something that they can look at and go, well, the deal we made was that we can't prosecute him based on his testimony or his evidence, but they could based on, this bitch.
I mean, it's hard to know what's going to happen.
You know what? Actually, can I bring somebody on real quick to answer a question?
Go ahead.
Alex, do you mind grabbing a spot? I've unlocked for you. She's still here? Yep, she is. Thank you.
This is.
Can you chat with us?
Yeah, I can chat, but I don't know how much help I'll be.
Okay. Just in terms of the court proceedings, like if a deal is made with somebody, right, for non-disclosure, not non-disclosure, for basically barring future prosecution, does that apply if somebody else gives evidence against them?
It's certainly the argument I would want to research and see if it's valid, to see if it's a viable argument.
Okay.
a deal that applied to one defendant does not by extension apply to this new defendant.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm hoping.
Getting out because it.
The language of the deal, though, said that they would absolve and give immunity to any co-conspirators named and unnamed. And she wasn't named, but they had the and unnamed in the deal.
Was that for Acosta? Or is that
Acosta.
the new?
That's Acosta.
Oh, let's vitiate. That's what I would try to do, to get rid of anything tainted from his first deal. Plus, the thing is, that was on a prior case. When he went to prison, when we saw him go to prison, that was on an entirely separate case. So that deal, I would think, does not apply in the new case. It's a totally different set of facts.
Right.
Is it different victims?
I would hope so. Some of them it might apply to if the victims. Okay, since he already, for lack of a better term, served time and was convicted and sentenced on victims that were named in that first trial, he cannot be tried again for those unless they were thrown out. So I would presume, unless they had separate fact patterns that could get them in front of a court on victims that were mentioned in the first proceedings, that they are going with new victims so that they can keep a clean name. That's what. Yeah, it would be really hard to tell victims that were in the fight in the begin with, well, why can't I have a second bite at the apple? But they don't usually get that.
Well, and I wonder, because I have two questions here, two things that I find complicated. One, does the sweetheart deal transfer to her, meaning that she cannot face prosecution under the Epstein deal? Or can she, what was I just saying? So does she benefit from the Epstein deal, but also does evidence she gives towards these other people, is it protected under the Epstein deal? Do you see what I mean? So those are my kind of conundrum.
What was that?
Do you want this one?
No, I'm curious what you think.
So you have to separate the two cases entirely.
Okay.
Remember, you have to pretend in this case that everything is fresh.
Okay.
So my understanding, and whoever wants to correct me, I'm just based on what you guys have told me about this deal. She was obliged, and she has immunity under the old case for anything that came out of the old case. But
okay.
She doesn't reap those benefits. It doesn't follow her to a new case. Everything is.
I think the problem with this indictment is that she's charged with 2 counts of perjury in the original case. Those might not hold up then.
Those counts?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they will.
They will?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the facts of the other case. It has to do with crimes she committed during that trial.
Okay.
Ow. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, because that alone,
charges to plea with.
Yeah.
To throw out.
Those are 2 felonies as it stands. I mean, that's serious time just for those. So, I mean, I guess we'll get a little justice. Fingers crossed. Not.
Yeah. I would imagine, depending, when we'll see has the indictment come out yet?
Yeah, I have it here.
50. Yeah, documents.
Alex, do you want us to send them to you?
Cool.
Yeah?
I can send it to you. I'll do it now. I'll send it on Twitter.
Sweet.
Oh, dear God. I can't get on Twitter.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine, Alex. We don't have to, review it right now. I just figured you might like to have it.
Does she have any sex abuse charges? Straight up names sex abuse charges in the indictment.
Conspiracy of enticing minors, enticement of minors, conspiracy to transport, and transportation of minors.
Oh, those are good. So There's such a thing as a superseding indictment or an amended indictment where you can go in and tack on multiple more charges later or more serious charges. But what they're going to want to do is get the most time possible.
Mm-hmm.
Those little perjury charges could be bargaining chips.
Yeah.
But the seriousness comes with the conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
Because conspiracy is a crime of itself. It doesn't have to do with the underlying felony. So conspiracy in the federal criminal law structure gets really enhanced sentencing.
That's interesting.
That's
Cool.
I think you're at what you might call an aggravating circumstance in terms of how they're charging her.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that's good.
That's about as on that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Feel free to hop off if you want.
Okay. I'm
and I'll
working and typing while.
Sure. Well, we'll bring you back on if we have more questions. Thank you so much. That was really helpful.
So I want to, if you're okay with this, if you can indulge me, I want to go through some of these allegations that are in these charges.
Oh, yes, please.
Okay. So Ghislaine Maxwell, the defendant, this is count 1, conspiracy to entice minors to travel to engage in illegal sex acts. The defendant in the sexual exploitation and abuse of multiple minor girls by Jeffrey Epstein assisted, facilitated, and contributed to Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of minor girls by, among other things, helping to recruit, groom, and ultimately abuse victims known to Maxwell and to Epstein to be under the age of 18, as young as 14. The specifics in this are disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
I was messaging you earlier that I was getting physically ill.
Ugh.
The things that she would do to groom these girls. She would take them shopping. She would take them to movies. She would talk about sexual things with them to normalize sex with these 14-year-old girls. She would undress in front of them just to make them feel comfortable with her naked.
Normalizing nudity, right? Totally.
She would get them to undress in front of her, again, to groom her and groom them and normalize that. Then she even did things like when she would bring the girls to do these massages on Epstein, she would get naked and she would be the first one to massage him to show them how it was done. And then she would have them massage her.
Is that not sexual conduct as well?
It is.
I would look at that and think
that'd be hard to argue, I think.
I don't, given the aggravated circumstances, I don't know. I think there could be a case made, but it is what it is, right?
Well, and then they said that she would encourage them to follow through with massaging Epstein, and then it would go to a sexual nature. But she would do things like ask them about their lives, about their schools, about their families, really try to ingratiate them.
Mm-hmm.
And then because she was a female, because she was a woman, the girls would feel more comfortable in this whole situation, and the normalization would almost happen naturally. Ugh. Makes me so mad.
Oh, okay. So Alex just chimed in. She said naked is sexual.
Oh.
So that is a sexual crime. Sexual indecency with a minor, if nothing else. So
yeah, it's not okay for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they will add these additional charges later.
I sure fucking hope so. I mean, I spent a good deal of time in family court working with people who had their children removed from care because of issues like this in family. Mm-hmm. So, to me, I'm looking at it and I'm just like, that is absolutely, yeah. Exploitation, minor sexual exploitation of a minor. Yeah, absolutely. It's just sickening. It's not healthy. It is that in and of itself could be traumatizing to a child. Never mind the Epstein part of it, but it just continued to escalate. How loathsome is that? And look, I'm not holding women to a higher standard here, but for fuck's sake, for a woman to prey on other female other females is just next level for me. I mean, in some ways, it disgusts me more than Epstein.
Well, and she used that. She used her gender and her femininity to put these girls at ease. Like that's the malicious part of it. Like that's the worst part to me, is because she knew that her being there would make them feel more comfortable.
Mm.
That's so fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, the pathology there, and I think we can get into that after we talk the charges, but the pathology with this woman, and I've got some ideas, but excuse me, you know, that she would be okay doing something to these girls in order to maintain a relationship with this man whose predilection was not even for her. Like, what is that? Again, we'll get to it, but yeah.
Yeah, there's something weird there. And I was trying to figure that out earlier, but I don't think I can. But maybe you can, because you have the knowledge and skills. You
know, even having all the training and experience I have in it, it's still one of those things that's like, some people are just deep icebergs. You know what I mean?
So Kayline brought up that she already had money. So we learned this today. You and I learned that after her dad died, all of his money was tied up. And so I say she was broke. Please, she wasn't broke by like regular people standards. She had $150,000 a year stipend from her trust. So like for most people, that would be enough money. But for somebody who was used to the amount of wealth that she was used to, that probably felt like she was pretty broke when she met Epstein. So she did use him and he used her. They used each other to get him more money, to make him more powerful. Mm-hmm. And then she was rewarded for that because she had connections. What did he say?
Just $150,000. I mean, poor baby.
Well, she was living in New York City, so that's probably like $60,000 in a regular city. But still,
bummer, man.
But still, you should be okay with that.
I bet she was couch surfing and everything.
She lived in an apartment that was $3,000 a month, so it's probably like a studio apartment. I don't feel bad for her. I'm just letting you know.
Hashtag this bitch.
This bitch, yeah.
Fucking love it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, so she was not. One of the things we talked about earlier, like you said, is just that they were basically using each other, her to gain wealth and him to gain access. And I think he saw in her someone who desperately wanted kind of a father figure to an extent. And I know, gross, right? Well, I'll get to that in the pathology, okay? But I think that played into it. And I think also he saw in her somebody who's very malleable. Somebody that he could manipulate into doing things for him. And so not just access to other wealthy people for whom he could extort money, basically, but also the fact that she might be an interesting person to use as a lure. So, but I just, from her point of view, it's far more pathological, I think, than Epstein's. Epstein, I can tell you what his issues were, like, bing, bang, boom. With her,
there's some underlying stuff happening. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
So part D of this first charge, Epstein offered to help minor victims, paying for travel, paying for education. And Maxwell, we know about this. Maxwell encouraged victims to accept the assistance, which made them feel like they owed Maxwell and Epstein. They were indebted to them, and they believed that they were trying to help them. So this, again, creates more leverage, more ties to these girls to get them to do what they wanted them to do with Epstein.
Right.
It's fucking sick.
It is. I mean, and then it is. It's stomach turning.
A lot of the stuff we already knew that list out the places. So there was a lot where they talked about Maxwell convincing these girls to leave state lines, to go from Florida to New York, from New York to New Mexico, from New Mexico to the Virgin Islands, and just trafficking them all around the country. So that's all listed in here too.
Right. And, what's interesting, is in terms of the FBI and why they're the ones who are tackling this case is basically if you're an American citizen anywhere in the world and you break the law, you commit a crime that is a crime in the American justice system, you are you basically qualify for federal prosecution and indictment and prosecution through the FBI. Likewise, if you're an international citizen somewhere else, you don't have citizenship in the United States, but you commit a crime in the U.S., then they can also prosecute you for that. So that's why the FBI is the one who's kind of heading up this investigation. Which is why, by the way, and again, we'll get to Prince Andrew, but that's why he is also probably shaking in his boots right now.
So Lex Wexner, I don't know if people knew this, but he was gay. Mm-hmm. There's some rumors that Epstein might have used that to his advantage to get Lex to do things for him and to put him in positions of power in his company. Mm. But to your point, Sarah, so Sarah was asking if Victoria's Secret was a front for young up-and-coming teen models, or a carrot that was used. So Lex wouldn't have done that, right, probably. But Epstein sure as hell did use that connection that he had to Victoria's Secret, to Lex Wexner, to all these other things to get girls to come in for auditions and photo shoots. That happened a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, no, a lot of these guys became middlemen for him, from my understanding. Mm-hmm. I mean, the ones that didn't were basically beholden to him, and I think that it was a matter of extortion. I honest to God think that him becoming a billionaire wasn't just because he was a savvy con man. You know what I mean? I think like, for instance, he started teaching at Dalton School, right? This prestigious school in New York with 0 bona fides, by the way, which was really exciting. Good job, Dalton School, for vetting your teachers. Hopefully you've learned your lesson, because Jesus fucking Christ. But yeah, I just think that, from there he ends up doing, he's successful in getting jobs and he's fairly good at keeping them, but he puts himself in target-rich environments, right? So through all of this, yeah, his associations with these rich and powerful people allows him not only to gain wealth and power, but also to access victim pools that he didn't priorly have access to, which is exactly what you're talking about with Victoria's Secret, Sarah and Eric. I mean, yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
Hideous.
So a lot of this in the first count just talks about how she concealed it, how she lied about all of these things. Mm-hmm. It names specific victims, but it doesn't give their names because they were minors. So it's victim 1, victim 2, victim 3. But it talks about them all being under the age of 18. Mm-hmm. So there's three specific victims, and we know that there's a lot more than that named in the Florida case, and there's probably even more than that aren't named anywhere that could come forward still. So it's 3 specific people that they're using these charges for. Mm-hmm. It's just interesting to me because there's so many other victims. I think that's intentional.
You think so? So if they don't get her on these, they've got backups?
Well, I think that these are specific because they probably, my guess is they either, I don't know, I'm speculating here, but I would say maybe they weren't named in the first case.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I don't know. It's just speculation.
Girls needed to be creative and art-inspired, strange requisite. I think that speaks to a personality type, though, in the victimology. I mean, it could just be a kink of his that he likes creative people or whatever. But I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, Eric, do you want to talk a little bit about our I mean, bless her heart,
Mary Farmer?
Yeah, the Juilliard case.
Oh, the Juilliard
case. Yeah.
Well, I think that the victims that were artists and musicians were easy to go after because he was a socialite. She was a socialite. So they were in that scene in New York already. So they're going to do whatever they can with wherever the victims are, right? So you find these young promising artists, you find these young promising musicians, you offer to fund their education, and now you've got them.
Right. And Alex just mentioned a great point. Creative people have dreams that can be manipulated.
100%. And they were very careful about who they picked. They found the girls that didn't have a lot of money. They found the girls that didn't have a lot of opportunity just handed to them. And they created opportunities to manipulate them.
Yes. I mean, and that's absolutely true. I mean, from a podcasting standpoint, this is a creative endeavor. And for those of us who are here who do that, or really any kind of artwork, especially if you're wanting to make a living out of doing it, right? It's a hard road to hoe, and I come from a background. My dad is an artist and has made a pretty good living doing it. You know what I mean? We were dirt poor growing up, and he would have to work 3 jobs and paint on his lunch break, but yeah, when you come to somebody and you say, oh my God, you're so talented. I'm connected with this guy who really is impressed with your work. Also, he's a billionaire. Can we pay for your school, or can we open a gallery for you? Or you know what I mean? You would just be like, this is heaven that's just dropped in my lap, right?
Unless you're like independently wealthy already,
sure,
you're probably going to say yes to that. You're probably going to look at that and say, oh, this is great. This is a good opportunity.
You're right. R. Kelly used the same tactics, 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think, that's unbelievably exploitative. And it really does take that victim base, just looking at, socioeconomic status alone. It takes it, next level in terms of how easy it would be to convince them to participate in things that they might otherwise never do. But I mean, there are other reasons that these girls complied as well. And we can see the same types of issues. Cosby scandal, which, yep, Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, all of those cases. And that just comes down to a straight up power differential. Like, what are you going to say no? Like, how are you going to say no to this? So,
but you see that with these types of people. You see that with these sexual abusers. That's what they do. Whether they have financial power or authoritative power, they're all using it to manipulate people to do what they want them to do. And it's disgusting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's exploiting the fact that somebody has relative, and in this case, very, very significantly less power than the person who is trying to control this situation. So it's not that they're like, hey, we want to take care of you and we want to be your benefactor and all this stuff for sex. They don't do that. No, that's just the lure. That's to get you to where you're beholden to them. And then just try to say no.
It's no accident that they were looking at kids in West Palm Beach.
Right.
That's not an accident.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I have a child.
I'll keep talking about
Thank
it.
you.
It's not an accident they were going after girls that were living in trailer parks whose parents were drug addicted and in poverty. All of that was intentional. The same reason that they go after these starving artists. All of that was intentional. They were looking for victims that they could manipulate. It's as simple as that. Somebody who could benefit from that money, somebody who could use that money, that's going to not think about it, which is totally fucked up if you ask me. Count 3, conspiracy to transport minors with the intent to engage in criminal sexual activity. It talks about how they were moving girls from state to state. It's pretty clear, pretty cut, dry there. If I could unlock the room, I would. Oh, there she's.
Sorry.
Back.
Yeah, I was like, uh-oh. Siri just turned on. I said sorry. Okay.
So I was talking about how count 3 is about the transport of minors across state lines. Count 4 is another. So there's 2 counts of transporting minors. Count 5 is perjury. This is the one I wanted to kind of get in real quick. And then if we want to open it up, we can, or if you want to add more about pathology.
Yeah, okay.
So they just kind of talk about what her false testimony was. They asked her, in the original case, did Jeffrey Epstein have a scheme to recruit underage girls for sexual massages? If you know, she said, I don't know what you're talking about. They asked her to list all the people under the age of 18 that you interacted with at any of Jeffrey's properties. She said, I'm not aware of anybody that I interacted with other than obviously the plaintiff who was 17 at the point.
I'm just going to point out real quick that even though she's saying, oh, no, I have no knowledge of this, whatever. Yeah, lacking in knowledge of an act being criminal doesn't bar you from being responsible for that.
Well, and obviously she knew. She obviously knew.
Well, and let's just put this out there. If you're going to engage, generally speaking, in encouraging women, let's say women, right, to drop trow and massage you and then massage, some nasty old man, probably should check some IDs if you don't want it to be illegal, right? Because I'm not going to yuck anyone's yum. I mean, if you're 18 years old and that's your bag, then have at, right?
And you're like, yeah, 60-year-old dude, I'm in.
$200 for that? Yeah, dude. I mean, look, I don't care. That's just sex trade. It is what it is. But yeah, if your whole thing is like, oh, no, we weren't doing anything illegal, then, again, check some fucking IDs, because I'm pretty sure when you're going to junior high schools and high schools to recruit people, you probably know the people that you're bringing in are not of age.
Were you aware of the presence of sex toys or devices used in sexual activities in Mr. Epstein's Palm Beach house? No,
I can't.
Not that I recall.
I can't.
They were everywhere. They were everywhere.
I'm sorry. Are you 7 years old? You don't know what a sex toy is? Jesus Christ. Oh.
Yeah, she just keeps saying, "Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anybody getting a massage. I don't know I've never given a massage. Whatever.
Hashtag this bitch, right?
I'm glad she got arrested.
We're gonna make this trend. I'm serious. Hashtag this bitch.
Yeah.
Because
we need a shirt that says that.
Oh, I will make one. I will send one. I'll make an event actually on Malice merch, and you can put it on yours too, and then people can just get theirs. And fuck, I'll make 100% of proceeds go to
Rain. Let's go to Rain.
Yep, there we go. Yep, 100% of proceeds going to Rain for these shirts. They will say hashtag this bitch. I love it. Okay, we're gonna make this happen. All right. Let's see. Girls, sex toys can save you putting up with shitty boyfriend or creepy billionaires.
Or psycho sex abusers.
Yeah, exactly. Or predatory women. Yeah. So, all of the above, 100%. Yeah. So let's talk just a little bit about the pathology before we open up.
Sure.
And I'm willing to stay on as long as anybody wants to chat and talk and whatever. Like, I've blocked out my evening for this, since it's not like a typical podcast. So, in looking at her, we see this person who is willing to actively this is a fun little sidebar. Okay. You look at this bitch and you just think, like, what is it about this person who would even be attracted to somebody like Jeffrey Epstein, right? Well, there may be a little of that father figure issue at play, but I think more than that, and it may be even prompted by that, is basically a lag in socio-emotional development, in that she never grew out of the bad boy phase. And by that, what I'm talking about, when you think of, for instance, serial killer groupies, right? People who want to marry serial killers. People who, like, for instance, Cindy Hendy, who got involved with, David Parker Ray, the Toy Box Killer, or, in the case of, like, Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka, which I think they were both fucking sadists, but they were attracted to each other. And the thing is, this is an actual paraphilia, and it's a really unique paraphilia in that it actually has ranges, which most don't. But it's called hybristophilia, and it's the attraction to somebody because of the knowledge that they have committed crimes. And in some cases, it's passive hybristophilia, where they're just like, oh my God, I want to marry Charles Manson, right? Ew.
Right.
At the same time, this can go into aggressive hybristophilia, which is what, this bitch was doing, basically, is actually participating in the crimes.
And Cindy Hendy did
exactly. And the reason they do so is because they're wanting to win the approval and love of the person that is being, what was it that you called her earlier? A trash bag?
Human trash bag,
Yeah.
yes.
So it's, your intellect is off the oh, sweet. Oh, God. Guys, I mean, look, I'm just a nerd for certain topics. Like, if I had to talk about astrophysics, I'd be, good luck. This is just an area that I've really spent a lot of my time and years and stuff on. And it cracks me up because people are like, oh my God, for 20, you're so educated. And I'm like, I'm not 20, nor near 20. It's been a minute. But yeah, I'm not a prodigy. I've just put a lot of time into it. But you're very, very kind. Thank you. Yeah, when you deal with these hypersophiliacs, they are often in situations where they feel like they're in a position that puts them sort of as a surrogate for a former abuser. And that could be that absent father figure, right? And they look at this person as fulfilling that role and finally winning that person's affection.
Oh my God, you hit the nail on the head. So I read an article today about how her dad would shower her with money and with privilege and with all these things, but nothing she did was ever good enough for him.
That's not shocking at all.
And so when he died, she had this whole like crisis where she didn't believe that he committed suicide. She believed that he was murdered, which is very similar to how Epstein died, which is weird and a weird parallel. But also she kind of just was like, okay, well, whatever, I'm going to go hide because everybody hates my dad and everybody hates me. And so she had like this anger towards him, but she also had this respect that she could never get from him. And so I think that you're right. I think that you're there.
Well, and I think, the thing is that when we think about abuse, I mean, obviously our mind first goes towards, father-daughter, probably sex abuse or physical abuse, right? It's not necessarily going to be that. It can be emotional abuse. It can be neglect, right? Because those all, something that...
Withholding.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that trauma, as we experience it, it doesn't matter if it's like an environmental disaster or if it's a rape or if it's, whatever, a fear or like a feeling of complete and utter abandonment that causes trauma for you, our body processes it the same way.
The same. Yeah.
Yeah. So the physiological effects of trauma are all fairly identical. So we're not all necessarily going to experience all of them, et cetera. But yeah, it's an important thing to kind of keep in mind there. This is a kind of person who is broken down in some way, and I feel like she definitely was. And to a point, I can empathize with that. I can have compassion for her in her earlier years, and even it doesn't matter how wealthy you are, you're denied something, for instance, that is a basic. I mean, it's not a basic need, but it's that second level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like once you have shelter and a safe place and
security.
Exactly. Once you have air and water and food and all of those things that basically sustain your life, the next level is you need emotional bonding with others. I mean, humans are, we're compulsory social beings, which is why this whole quarantine and shelter in place is so difficult for everybody. Is because a lot of us are losing that human connection. I mean, people who live alone, I'm stunned, but I mean, that's why we're seeing a raise in like domestic violence rates. And we're seeing a raise in, unfortunately, completed suicide attempts because people are just
child abuse,
starved for human interaction and human companionship. So, I just think, when you look at something like that and a background like that, I look at that and I just think I would love to have been able to hold that little 10-year-old girl and hug her and say it's going to be okay and you matter, right? But as a woman, she had agency and she chose to do these things. And if you were victimized in a way that you felt traumatized or that you felt like somebody had wronged you or hurt you in this very serious way, like why would you be willing to turn that around on somebody else with so many other people? So, as far as the pathology goes, do you have any thoughts on that, Eric? I mean, beyond like what I brought up, or
No, I think you're right on. I think that it speaks a lot to who she was and where she was. And, I think we both thought that maybe she came into the relationship with Epstein completely wealthy. We found out now that's not the case.
right?
So that says a lot more about her state of mind as well when she kind of joined up with
Certainly.
him. I think that you're right. I think you're spot on.
Oh, Caroline, that's a great question. Can they use any of that as for defense? I bet they'll try. I will go.
They're going to try everything.
I will go and say this much, and I'm hoping that it stays this way. But hybristophilia is very, very rarely known paraphilia. You're going to have to get somebody who is pretty damn sharp as a psychiatrist to even diagnose it. So
I wouldn't put it past them to use everything that they can to try to defend her.
Oh, 100%. She's going to be painted as this unknowing, unwitting, bless her heart, simple woman, with a good heart who just didn't know and she just wanted to help young girls.
She has at least $20 million that we know of, and that's just what we know.
Mm-hmm.
So she can afford the best defense attorneys right now.
Yeah.
And she's going to have
Oh, she will, for sure. For sure. And frankly, I think depending on how it goes in terms of what she's willing to give up or not, I think there may be others contributing to that fund.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see a plea deal with her naming people.
It's possible, but again, it puts a target on her back.
If she doesn't die first.
Yeah. I mean, here's what I'm seeing. She either dies pre-trial or she dies after the trial or making a plea, or she dies in prison by a hit. I don't see any other way around it. I really don't. And frankly, if she goes into prison, it's going to be worst case scenario because either somebody's going to pay to have her killed or, people aren't real, especially, I mean, look, men or women's prison. It's really one of the things that links them together. They don't like people who exploit and abuse children. Especially
there's a good chance. There's a really good chance she's going to end up exactly where Epstein was, and there's a really high chance that they're going to put her in solitary and protective custody.
Yep.
And there's going to be significant pressure on the police and on the jail to make sure that she is protected because they failed with Epstein.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be so much more scrutiny on
I
this.
agree.
That's not to say that people can't make their way through it. I just hope to God that she sings before that
exactly
happens.
That's where I am too.
Can she be assassinated when no doubt more people will be watching? I mean, people were supposed to be watching Epstein, so things could happen. People could get paid off, stop looking, stop watching, cameras could be turned off. A lot of stuff can happen. You never know. There's a lot of money out there.
Exactly. And having gone through what happened with the Epstein case and all of the uproar about it because there was all this dodgy evidence or lack of evidence, I think there may be plenty of time for people to have orchestrated a better way of doing this. And it's entirely possible they could say, oh, she died from COVID complications.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that would be viable. It's not saying, oh, no. She died by suicide. She took her life because she just couldn't handle it. If you come up with a reason that she died by natural causes, it's a little more palatable, I think. It would be real fucking suspicious as far as I'm concerned, but it is what it is. Would they risk it after the conspiracy?
Yeah.
I think they would. Yeah.
Look, you have fucking Prince Andrew. You have so many politicians in the US, so many powerful people named in his black book. Mm-hmm. These people have a lot to protect.
Definitely.
And I could see them stopping at nothing to make sure that they are not named in any of this.
Definitely. Yeah. Let's see. Let's have a glass case. Let's see. Backlash from social media beats the hell out of big names going down. I agree. Would it not be less risky?
Prince Andrew's so protected.
Oh, I think I don't know. I don't know how protected he really is. I mean, I feel like, Queen Mother canceled his birthday party. Just saying.
You think Mummy's distancing herself from him?
Who? I think Mummy wants nothing to do with Prince Andrew.
She's on her last legs. That's true.
You're so welcome, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you,
Yeah.
Sarah.
Unofficially disowned. Yeah, exactly, Jillian. I think that's well, she is on her last legs, but do you really think that Charles is going to jump to her to his defense? I don't. I wouldn't want to have anything to do with it. And frankly, the younger kids are a lot more liberal than the traditional monarchy has been anyway. So, I can see Harry and Meghan, over here now, just being like, yeah, no, fuck that guy. And I definitely see, I think that William and Kate are very, very aware. Probably doesn't even know what's going on. But I mean, for real though, William and Kate, they just seem to be pretty on, like, in touch with what the expectations of the media are from them. And I think that with this kind of scandal, they're not going to want any part of it. Not a bit. And I don't think that it will hurt either of their hearts to say, yeah, fuck that guy. We're not.
Well, I feel like both William and Harry have, like, they have their mom's
absolutely
heart, and so I think that they would be very, very upset.
Well, and their dads too at this point. Like, I wouldn't want Uncle Andy coming around and, I mean, it's not. Let's see, in the UK, there's a tendency to have documents implicating child sexual abuse by political figures to go missing. Well, see, unfortunately, though, here's the thing.
We have
he committed crimes in the U.S., so he is absolutely eligible for U.S. federal indictment.
We have the documents. Now, that's not to say that we don't have a history of documents disappearing here either, because we do.
But I mean, it's much more rare in the FBI, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Would Trump do that, though? Because do what? Oh, like bring Prince Andrew in?
He doesn't get a say.
Who knows?
The FBI doesn't answer to Trump.
That's true.
The thing that's the biggest issue for me is that, you've got a predator that you understand and you've got a predator that you don't, right? We expect, given male biology, and by that I don't mean like, oh, well, men are just aggressive. No, they have a higher trait receptivity to it because of hormones like androgens, testosterone, etc. Like, so they are more likely to be aggressive than women. It's not a foregone conclusion, lots, for sure. But like, but women lacking that, it's like you're making a conscious choice, not following the urges of your biology, right? Like, and here's the thing: when you look at pedophiles and child molesters are not necessarily inextricable, right? And I think it's misunderstood, because to be a pedophile means you are sexually and romantically attracted to children. That doesn't mean that a pedophile can't be a child molester, but a child molester is somebody who's wanting to exert power and control. An example of a joint person, like with both facets of their personality, would be somebody like Henry Lee Lucas, right? Who both was pedophilic in his attraction to and romantic involvement with underage girls, and as well as raping children.
Where does Dean Corll fall? Is he more of a child molester?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, now granted, he did have sexual attraction to males, and I think his focus on children or guys who were, like, he had both technically children and technically adults, right? It's a weird area, but like, I think his oldest victim was like 20. So, it ranged from like 13 to 20-year-olds. Okay. So definitely a predilection for younger. Yeah. But I don't think that there was any real romance in what he was doing with those individuals. There may have been sexual attraction, sure, but I think he got off on the power as much as anything else. I'm not sure I classify Dahmer as a sexual sadist. I don't know that I agree with that, but throwing it in there. There are plenty of people. Dennis Nielsen, for instance, the Scottish version of Dahmer minus cannibalism. You've got men who are living during a time when their sexuality is highly stigmatized and in some cases even considered a disease of the mind. And so even the Albert Fish, yeah. Yeah, he did want automatons. Please. Anyway, he was that poor dude. I mean, look, fuck him, but like, he is a mess. Anyway, not the topic.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that, you know, you can internalize a social stigma like that, and it still happens with LGBTQIA plus, you know, individuals who are out there, that it is traumatizing to you. And you can internalize it to a point and reject it in yourself to a point that you hate others who are either representative of being comfortable in that skin or people who remind you of yourself when you made that realization. Like, for instance, in Gacy's case, his victimology was all around the same age that he was when he realized that he was, in fact, either gay or bisexual. I'm not going to speak to that. Unless he self-identified, it would be nothing but speculation on my part. So, and it doesn't really matter. It's just non-binary, right? You know, you got somebody like him and his victimology are all these kids who were around the same age that he was when he not only realized that he was, or not realized, I think recognized that he was attracted to others, that he came to terms with the fact that, like, I'm attracted to men. Yeah, exactly.
Accepted.
Yeah, he was like, okay, I'm attracted to men. You know, and a lot of us, at least more forward-thinking people at this point in time, look at that and we just go, yeah, okay, that's great. Thumbs up. Good. You know, like, what does it matter? However, you know, at that time, that would be a very, very difficult thing to kind of wrap your head around, and especially for John Wayne Gacy, who was named for fucking John Wayne, like the man's man, because his dad was this, you know, aggro, toxic masculinity kind of bro, and would taunt him from like the age of 3 or 4 for being fey, you know? I mean, like, what the fuck? Of course, that's gonna, in your mind, that's gonna be like the worst thing that you could possibly be. And then the fact that it came to be true, I mean, that has to be, you know, he must be thinking, God, there's been something wrong with me from the start. So, of course, he's targeting people who remind him of him, gay or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was really, really sad. Let's see. Okay. You know, as far as I'm concerned, you know, it's like, this is one that we're going to continue. I think we should make this just a series that when big things happen for this, we just pop back on and keep updating, because it's big. And again, we just want to have more people, you know, chime in and listen up and get involved. And hell, again, let's make hashtag this bitch trend. You know what I mean? I want that hashtag to be associated with her, you know, in what's it called, for posterity. Oh God. Okay, guys. I think we're gonna kind of wrap up.
I guess that's it.
I mean, thank you all so much for joining us. Again, we'll keep you updated. We'll be doing more of these, obviously, and definitely, if you don't listen to True Consequences, Malice people, please go, you know, listen, subscribe, give him a great review, and, you know, sprinkle some stars on him, like 5. Great, perfect, actually. And for True Consequences listeners, if I have not turned you completely off, you know, go check out Malice. And thank you all so much. But yeah, check out Malice. And all right, guys, thank you so much again for joining us. And until next time, I'm Ariel Cooksey. This has been Eric Carter-Landin of True Consequences. Signing off. Bye.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.